Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the WealthyHomeowner.ca, Canada's authority on home ownership. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
And thanks for having me back, Jim.
Ross, a great day to have you on the show as the Vancouver housing stats have just been released and the mainstream media outlets are claiming almost record levels of homes have been sold. Have they really?
Yeah, no, not again. You're, there's so many things involved with discussing housing stats, Jim. It's, I can go on for days, literally days, debunking what gets released to the public. It's it's just crazy what gets released, like this release today. So this, we see things from how the home trading infrastructure works. So that's how we see everything. So in order to understand what the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver has done today, okay, with this number, and what they did in September, because in September I think they were claiming a 56% year-over-year gain. And then what you have to understand is not only did they report it, but they released this report to the press last night, and the press wasn't allowed to release it until this morning. So what that means is that 9 o'clock this morning, before people were even off to work in British Columbia, BNN was already talking about Vancouver home sales, okay? The reporters had already done the report, what they were going to say. It was already there under embargo, ready to be released. And personally, Jim, I didn't even know that this embargo business existed with Real Estate Stat until 2010. So I didn't even know that this was ongoing. I knew a little bit about the press being under embargo from the Bank of Canada with their rate announcements and that sort of thing. But I didn't know that organized real estate had commanded this kind of control over the press. And a day like today, it really allows you to see how much of a fraud has been committed on the Canadian public, and how willing mainstream media has been in being complicit in the message that they've sent. And what's even more amazing to us, Jim, is that all the realtors and real estate brokers and members of these organizations, they all believe these stats that are out today, even when they have these rules themselves that debunk what was just released. So let me tell your listeners across Canada, and specifically this will apply to your listeners from the Greater Vancouver or British Columbia area. The MLS Rules of Cooperation, the rules that govern MLS systems in British Columbia or certain real estate boards, the same as they govern a different set of rules, governs every real estate board across Canada. There's 69 unique sets of rules that apply. These rules dictate how sales are going to be reported and where the fluctuations come into play month to month. These fluctuations are important to your local realtors being able to earn commission, because these fluctuations are what causes house price illusion to be created. And let's look in Vancouver's place, because you commented on Vancouver's news release today. You can't even count the number of homes sold during the month of October that became firm and binding during the month of October until Thursday of this week at the earliest. So at 11:59 p.m. on November the 5th will be your first opportunity to actually know how many homes traded hands in the month of October 2020 in Vancouver. Anyone who makes an claim today of how many sales took place in October is lying. They're ignoring the MLS Home Trading Infrastructure's own rules in the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. Because this is what Section 5 of the MLS Rules of Cooperation, Section .01c, has to say. Property sales information for properties listed on the MLS system must be reported to the board. In general, sales shall be reported to the MLS department by the listing brokerage within 5 calendar days of the contract becoming unconditional. What that means is, to the layperson listener, the person who's never been a member of a real estate board, or for 99.9% of the realtors out there who don't know what the real estate rules and regulations are or what they mean. It means that up to November the 5th at 11:59 p.m., you will not know what homes became firm and binding on the last Friday in October. You won't know them. Meaning, you are specifically excluding homes from your October sales count, and what you're going to do is you're going to roll those sales into your November sales count. And that will allow you in the month of November to get a boost in marketing through the sales numbers. This is the exact same reason why you had a 56% gain the month of September in Vancouver, because of the way that the months rolled over. Let me explain this to your listeners, what this means. If a home was sold on the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, or 31st of October, you don't know for sure if it was reported to the MLS system by Friday evening, because people still have until this Thursday at 11:59 p.m. to legally report it. If your real estate board had the information out last night to reporters in Ontario, so that reporters at BNM Bloomberg could report it to everyone across the nation, that every other newspaper in Canada had access to this press release in a Canadian press, that meant that they had to have calculated these sales on Monday, sometime during Monday at the latest, which means sales from the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st may not even have been reported. We know that they're not reported. So what that means is this specific month, for the month of October, the reason why you only had a 26% year-over-year increase in sales is because you didn't count sales that took place in October, and you're going to count them in November. And if the housing market is registering negative sales in that month, that's going to give you extra sales to hide the declining market. In September, sales really weren't up 56%, because in September this year ended on the 30th, a Wednesday, meaning all of the sales would have had to have been reported by the Monday. They would have all had to have been reported by the Monday. So because the way September laid out, being Wednesday was the 30th, by Friday the 2nd, most of the sales that would have been taken place in September would have already been reported on the 2nd, when the real estate board creates their reports, artificially inflating September's numbers, because it actually included more of the entire month. October, they took a hit. So you went from a 56% gain in September to only a 26% gain in October. This really doesn't matter except right now. Because if sales are declining in November and they move sales forward from October, that's going to give them another month of a positive spin in the market. Meaning, people who don't have access or the ability to read MLS data are going to make a financial decision of their lifetime that's false. It's a result of the real estate board wanting to get a message out and control the message. Now, your listeners may ask, well, why is nobody else talking about this, Ross? Well, they're not talking about it, I've come to accept, because they don't understand it. So your local realtors, your local real estate brokers, your economists, your politicians, they don't understand that this is how the system works. And I could tell them, if you don't believe me, go to CREB.com, the Calgary Real Estate Board. Because that real estate board publishes data that the public can see. Now, the data is only on a limited time basis. You have to be able to interpret the data because part of the release is a stat. But they have a webpage that's Housing Statistics Daily Housing Summary. So they're really the only major real estate board in Canada to have a daily housing summary that is updated every single day. And here we have a case in point. So your realtors in Calgary have announced that sales were up 22.67% year over year in October. Yay! Hurrah! Great things. The average price was up 4.5%. Hallelujah, Alberta. The average price is up. This is great news. Realtors are going to make some commission, is what they're announcing. Don't forget, folks, what I'm telling you about Vancouver and Calgary rolls into your provincial numbers. Your provincial numbers roll into the Canadian Real Estate Association's national numbers. So the magnitude of the fraud gets bigger as more real estate boards report stats instead of data. Okay? The magnitude of error increases. This is why we tell everybody we can time the housing market. We know what's going to happen, 8 months in advance, because we know this is how the stats are published, why they're published this way, and what the underlying data says. Go to the CREB website right now, and you're going to see. You're going to see that the average price in October is up 4.5% year over year. You're going to see sales are up to almost 23% year over year. And then when you look over to November, the magic happens. Because all of a sudden, in the first 3 days of November, sales are down 14%. The average price is down 16% year over year in the first 3 days of November. Okay, that means in the first 3 days of November of 2019 and the first 3 days of November 2020, the average selling price, which they call it, the average price, is down $81,000. Yet, the month of October, it was up $20,000. This is the magic that is going to have you go out and book a mortgage. You're going to bind your family for the next 25 years into mortgage debt payments based on the house price illusion that the local real estate boards create. People say, well, Ross, it can't be that easy. Oh, sure it is, folks. Because on that Calgary Real Estate Board, CREB.com, scroll down further, and you're going to see that they give you weekly totals. So I just told you that sales in the month of November, the first, second, and third, are down 12 fewer sales. Yet, in the last week, sales are up 104. Sales are up 35% over the last week, but sales are down 14% over the last 3 days. Yet, the weekend ended on the last Friday of October was the 30th. Meaning, what I've just described to you as a manipulation of stats is what happened in Vancouver. Because those sales were not pushed forward, and they're going to be carried forward into November's numbers. And that number will be misrepresentative of what's really actually going on in the housing market. So, this is what we would tell your listeners, and we would tell it to you from a provincial standpoint for the province of British Columbia. You did not have record sales in September as universally was reported by real estate boards, realtors, real estate brokers, the economists at every bank of Canada, every major bank in Canada, your credit unions, your organized British Columbia Real Estate Board, or British Columbia Real Estate Association, the Canadian Real Estate Association, Bank of Canada, and CMHC. It did not happen. Because we'll tell you, back in September of 2018, homes were trading hands quicker in September than they were of 2020. We will tell you in 2017, homes were trading hands quicker in September than they were in 2020. In 2016, they were trading homes at a true record rate in September, way more than 2020. 2015, they were trading hands quicker than they were in 2020. You have to go all the way back, folks, all the way back to 2013 to find a slower month of September in terms of homes trading hands, a unique measurement that your local real estate boards don't produce, than they were of September of 2020. Yet you can't go out there and find that in the news anywhere. We only finished knowing what happened in September around the 13th of October. So around the 13th of October, we had all of the MLS boards across Canada, based on their various rules and regulations, had finished all the sales, and we were then allowed the 2 or 3 days that we're required to make sure sales get put into the right slot. Because I'll tell you folks, our numbers don't go up and down like organized real estate sales counts, sales stats do. We measure the homes that traded hands. We measure the trading rate. We measure the acquisition rate. We measure the activity rate. These charts all are straight lines or curved lines, but they're not up and down lines like you see from organized real estate, because we don't have to create house price illusion. Did anyone come clean today and explain to the listeners on BNN Bloomberg about the Vancouver housing market that they released? What about the Globe and Mail? Did anyone at the Globe and Mail in British Columbia come out and expose the Real Estate Board Greater Vancouver as a fraud? No, they didn't. Why? Because they're ignorant to how Rule 5.01 bracket C bracket impacts housing data. We know how that rule impacts housing data because we helped create it in the 80s in the Greater Real Estate Board of Hamilton, Burlington. We know how that number, how that rule impacts housing data. We know how when you change that rule in a subsequent MLS rules and regulations revision, it revises all your data counts. The reason why we don't get a 26% gain in August, a 56% gain in September, and then back down to a 26% gain in October in Vancouver, and because we have a nice, beautiful line, clear line that we're able to forecast from, is because we understand that these rules exist. You can ask anyone who is a realtor what Rule 5.01 bracket C bracket means. And then you need to ask them why, over the last decade, 5 years, decade, 2 decades, they never came clean and told you what that rule meant. Because either A, they're incompetent or ignorant, or C, they are deceptively lying to you so you will do business with them. We don't care. We simply measure house price illusion with each passing day, each passing month. We know where the sales are going to go. We know where the sales mix is going to go. And we tell our members exactly what's going to be reported in the future. And it's why we never have a fear of making a mistake, because our forecasts are that far ahead. We're reading the market this way. So what you heard about Vancouver today, you need to ask the person that told you that sales were up 26% and are bragging about them. What impact 5.01 bracket C bracket means in interpreting real estate stats for the month of October in the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Aven Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Aven's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avenresources.com.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Aven, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, a listener was inquiring about the Bank of Canada's forecast for perpetual low interest rates through 2023 and asked, does Ross think it's better to wait to renew your mortgage long term, or should we do it now?
Okay, so great question. So here's the answer. What month is the best month to renew a mortgage? What month over the last 40 years has consistently offered the lowest interest rate possible for a renewal? Google it. Google it, folks. Go ahead and Google it. You will not have an answer. We know what the answer is. This isn't magic. This isn't brain surgery. This is simply tracking how mortgages are booked, how the banks react to the mortgage books that are ongoing, and what the resulting interest rates are going to be. We had a client last week, a member last week, who booked a 1.35% fixed 5-year mortgage. Let me express that again. They booked mortgage debt at 1.35%. And that's before November hit. Guess what, folks? To those who understand how housing markets function and how the mortgage lending infrastructure works, Movember has got nothing to do about mustaches and beards. Movember is not something new. And to a guy like me with a mustache, it's something I better know. Movember goes way back into the 1980s because you knew when that the best time for your client to structure their renewal would be for the month of November, because historically, November is the best month to renew your mortgage in Canada. The banks are booking the mortgage originations are generally at the lowest that they normally are during the course of a year. They're under the most pressure to get year-end profits. The year-end profits are derived from growing their mortgage book. That creates more competition in the lending space, and rates drop. Now, I stress, we have 40 years of data. So when you go to these rate shopping sites and you see that they only have data going back to 2008, and then they've tried to guess what the rates are in the back, we own the data, okay? We own it. We collected it because banks sent it to us every single week to try to get our business. So we collected that information and put it into a spreadsheet. We started the spreadsheet in 1986. My dad started it before I got into real estate. And it was one of my first jobs in the business is to track the mortgage rates from the banks. So that meant not only were we tracking rates, we were also tracking rate discount. So we have rate discount information going back to 1986, not the 2008 that all these lending sites that are out there right now are limited to. That's why we know how the banks are going to respond to the housing market, how it's going to respond to the renewal market, which are two different markets that merge together. And that is where the bank VPs and presidents are going to get their bonuses from. So would I risk that next October? Now, again, we may see rates that get lower in the spring. I mean that's very true. But we can't say let's minimize risk. Let's go with the historical best month, which would be November. And are they going to be below 1.35%? Are you going to get another chance to get a mortgage that basically means inflation is going to mean you pay no interest? Not only is inflation going to be decreasing the value of your principal. In other words, if you own $100,000 today and you own $100,000  10 years from now, that $100,000 is going to be worth a lot less money. So the longer you can delay paying off your principal, in some ways, the lower the cost really is to repay it, because you're going to be getting raises. The cost of things are going to be going up, yet your amount of principal loan remains the same. So not only are you going to have inflation hitting down your principal, but you're also going to have inflation wiping out the mortgage interest that you pay. This is a rare, rare, rare opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean that you should go out and buy a home on the premise of getting a low mortgage rate for the first 5 years that you own the house. If we were in the United States, folks, our recommendations are totally different there. Okay, our recommendations in a couple of places which we're giving advice to in the United States, which is not very many, is totally different. Because there, we can get a 30-year mortgage of a fixed interest rate. We know that a family can lock in for 30 years technically a rent payment on a house that they own. They're going to be a landlord with a landlord benefit for the continually falling rent payment because of the power of inflation, versus being a landlord that actually relies on that inflation to make profit, as what normally investors in Canada do. Okay, it's two totally different scenarios. So you have to ask yourself, A, what kind of security does today, and this is what I'm going to say is no different today than it has been for the 30 years that I've been consulting families on housing. Okay? No different. No different than the 50 years my family has been consulting families on housing. Okay? If your family is comfortable at this mortgage payment, and we know that the only room to drop rates is very marginal. Rates can only drop a little bit. But on the upside, I mean, even though it's not going to happen, we know that you have massive amounts of room to increase on the upside. Okay? It's not going to happen, but there is massive amounts of room for that to happen. I guess in the Depression, people didn't think interest rates were going to be able to go up. But you couldn't borrow money then. So you have to ask yourself, is the mortgage payment that you're going to lock into conducive to a high quality of life for you and your family? If that mortgage is conducive to minimizing anxiety, stress, depression, or conflict in the household, then you should always lock into the mortgage. You can always revisit it 3 to 5 years later, taking your pick. We're telling people today, there are many people, many families. I would guess, now this is off the top of my head, Jim, but I would guess over a third of mortgage holders in Canada should really be looking at a 10-year rate. You should really be considering that, because you have to understand or you have to consider where the economy is going to be going over the next 10 years, and is this a defensive move that basically protects your family? You have to remember, in Canada, mortgages become unlocked after 5 years. So worst case scenario, you pay 3 months of interest 5 years from now, and you can go out and walk away from a 10-year mortgage. That's what the answer that this listener needs to hear. First of all, November, historically, is the best month to book a mortgage, to renew a mortgage. Okay? If there's any chance that we were able to get a family to close on a home in the month of November, we would try to do it. Okay? We would actively try to get our clients to close in November, because we knew that the renewal dates would always happen in November. And because families are creatures of habits, the odds of them moving to a 6-month so that they could lock back into a new 5-month in a different month schedule was not going to happen. If we could start them off from day one in November, we knew that they had the best opportunity to pay the least amount of mortgage interest over the course of their life of home ownership. So that's what my answer would be to these folks. Go out there and see what the lowest 5-year mortgage rate you can get right now. Come home, spend a couple of days as a family talking it over, go over all your finances, do a spreadsheet where you have all your expenses, what your income is, figure out what your job loss or a job security is, and make a rational decision. Because that's the only way that you should ever answer this question.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Value from success, growth, and discovery. Golden Arrow Resources is a well-funded gold copper exploration company with proven management and prospective properties in Chile, Argentina, and Paraguay. Golden Arrow trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange, symbol GRG, on Frankfurt, symbol G6A, and the OTCQB, symbol GARWF. For more information, visit us at goldenarrowresources.com or call Sean at 778-686-0135.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross K. Ross, a listener in Cambridge, Ontario, asked, we're seeing higher-priced homes selling in Cambridge that were not selling in the fall of 2019 and the spring of this year. Why are we seeing higher-priced homes selling, and what does that mean to a family who lives in a $500,000 home?
Okay, so what you're seeing, not only in Cambridge, but any of the outlying cities of the prime markets in Canada, okay, that have been busy. So Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver are late trade stages, okay? So the behavior of families changes, it follows a pattern over the course of a trading cycle. This pattern repeats itself over and over and over again. And what you're seeing in these outlying regions is late cycle trading pattern. So this means people who build up a lot of equity from house price illusion in the major cities look out into the distance, and they see this castle on the hill that they can buy for the same price that they own their hovel in the big city. And they make the move, okay? Now, they usually make this move irrationally, but they make this move, okay? Then as the housing market corrects, okay, you go through a full correction, they have an opportunity to buy back into that market, okay? Which is the pattern that normally is followed. So that is what's happening in places like Cambridge, Guelph, even KW, although KW does have growth. It's you saw this in Burnaby, you saw this in New Westminster, you saw this in Abbotsford in BC. You see this in the outer-lying parts of Montreal. Okay, these are common trading patterns. Okay, they're followed over and over and over again. But this is what you also have to understand, because this happened to people in Vancouver, but in Vancouver it was called foreign buyers. We call them non-locals. Okay, when a non-local buyer is buying into your housing market, organized real estate uses that to their advantage to claim housing prices are rising higher than what they actually are, or even if they actually are at all. Your local real estate board is oblivious to this in 2020. They're clueless that this is how housing markets function. Your local realtors don't have enough experience because they haven't been in the market long enough to know. Those that have been long enough in the market are retired now. Okay, they're gone. They're off enjoying life, like my mom and my dad. You know, I was lucky. I started selling real estate when I was 26 years old. What's going to happen in Cambridge is you're going to hear false claims of average price increases. We say they're false claims is because what's your local real estate sales stats, your benchmark price, your sales are. They're just measuring house price illusion. How much people believe and are convinced to believe, and how much everybody in the universe believes the average house price is worth, what it's worth. And it's not. It's illusion. It's created by illusion. This is how the illusion works. Get a spreadsheet. So if you're listening to this show, open a spreadsheet or get a piece of lined paper and draw 5 lines. At the top of one line, write 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. Okay, at each of the lines. Now we have 5 prices of 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. Normally, when a local buyer buys, it's because a first-time buyer enters the market and buys that $100,000 home, as we've talked about in other shows. That 100 buys a 2, 2 buys a 3, 3 buys a 4, 4 buys a 5, and the 5 dies or moves to another city. Okay, or a builder's building brand new luxury homes, and that person exits the new home market and buys into the new home market. Okay, now that is a perfect sales chain. Okay, so when your housing market is all powered by local, you would have an average selling price of those 5 homes in that one sales chain of $300,000. When the next month happens, and it's all a local sales chain, you have a 100, 200, 300, 400, 5, and the next person dies or they move into the new homes market or move to a different city. Your average selling price it's $300,000. Even if there's 2 sales chains in that month, your average selling price is still $300,000. And then you have magic months, like the people in Vancouver experienced for 3 years, and that the organized real estate in British Columbia used against the people of British Columbia to drive up housing prices to grow their commission earnings. Because in the next month, you have the first sales chain, 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500 of local buyers. You have the second sales chain, 100, 200, 300, 400, $5,000 of local buyers. And then you have the non-local buyer, the buyer who comes in from a more expensive city, seeing the castle off in the horizon. And they don't buy a $100,000 house. They buy a single $500,000 house. That's right, folks. In the month where those 11 sales took place, because one non-local buyer bought, 1 in 11 sales went to a non-local. And the magic of MLS math got to work. Because now do the average, folks. Because now you have 1 extra purchase sale of a $500,000 home that didn't involve 4 sales from local buyers to make it happen. You get a 6% house price gain, even though the price of the houses didn't change a penny. What you had was 1 non-local buyer, representing about 9% of the total sales in this simple lesson, driving up the price of homes by 6%, because the local real estate board reported housing prices are up 6%. The average price is up 6%. Your local newspapers report average price is up 6%. Your local mortgage people report local average price is up 6%. The national media reports the average price is up 6% in Cambridge, Vancouver. You have all the realtors, every single real estate brokerage, everyone who's blogging, everybody who's doing reports, everybody who's claiming to have some magic sauce about the housing market says average price is up 6%. What is the poor, innocent family to do? All of this, these people are telling them the average price is up 6%. The next month, the person who owns that $100,000 house has heard prices are up 6%. Their real estate agent tells them, yeah, housing prices are up 6%. The owner of that $100,000 house smiles and says, great, let's list for $106,000. The owner of the $200,000 house lists at $212,000. The owner of the $300,000 house lists at $318,000. The owner of the $400,000 house lists at $424,000. And the owner of the $500,000 house, they list their home for $530,000. The magic happens once again, and now you've got a magical increase of the 6%. It went from being illusion to being believed to being financed. That is how every single housing market in North America functions. It's why we offer $10,000 to anyone who can prove what we're saying is false. Prove that housing prices change in a month. They don't. The only thing that changes in the example we just gave was one non-local buyer who looked into the horizon and saw his castle on the hill or her castle on the hill, realized they had enough money in their pocket to buy that castle, even though they were looking at it through binoculars, drove out and bought that house. And instead of 10 homes selling, there was 11. 9% of the sales were going to non-local buyers. The result, a magical 6% year-over-year house price gain, reported by local realtors, your local real estate brokers, your local real estate boards, and believed by everybody in the universe. This is why you have housing bubbles, folks. This is why a housing bubble has to pop. This is why all of the financial damage that is already being reported by us and that is going to be reported subsequently by everyone else has been caused because MLS house price magic, house price illusion, the MLS house price pyramid, It is a scheme. It is a con. You can prove it with the example I just gave you.
Ross, thank you so much for the update.
Thanks for having me on, Jim.
My guest has been homeownership consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. If you have any questions for Ross, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. Find us on Twitter @HouseStreet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HouseStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.